Hello and welcome, fellow otaku. I know it's been a while since you've heard my sweet, sultry voice, but if you didn't read my community post, I'm back to having more free time and doing more videos. Though I won't be devoting as much time as I did before. But enough about that. Today, we will be discussing the final episode of Attack on Titan, titled The Battle of Heaven and Earth, which is where the Attack on Titan story concluded with a massive bang. Mappa really went all in. It was like watching an epic movie through and through, and I'll be covering it today in its entirety, comparing the anime to the manga, and also I'll be sharing my thought. I can't do this all in one video, so I'll be dividing it into 3 different parts. The final part, I'll share my thoughts through and through. I know it's been a while, so I'll leave this intro very short and stop wasting time, and let's get right into it. The final episode, part 1 of Attack on Titan, lasted 30 minutes. Part of that was a recap, which I'll cover first. This first part covered 2 manga chapters. Chapter 135, titled the same as the episode, Battle of Heaven and Earth, and 136, titled Dedicate Your Heart, Sesageo. Chapter 135 has 43 pages and 183 panels, while 136 has 45 pages with 236 panels. Let's see which of them has been adapted and which was eaten by an Okapi. Before the actual episode begins, we get a quick flashback lasting about 3 minutes. This shows the little girl impossibly seeing the scouts and the Titan shifters in the plane. Now they all ramp up to leap out into full battle. Their friend and genocidal maniac Eren Yeager is massacring the place, and it's time to stop that. With the sound blaring in the background, Onyankopon dodges projectiles from the Beast Titan only to lose one of his engines, but our team gets the chance to leap out to safety. Now we get that blaring OST as Reiner takes on the Beast Titan, followed by the other guys. This scene really looks like Mappa remastered it and took the time out to perfect it, which I can't be angry about at all. The Marlians see what's happening once the Cart Titan joins the fray. Time now for a remake of the voice audio from Armin wanting to ask Eren one more time how exactly he's free. This would actually end the recap version. The episode pretty much plays out the same as it did in the manga, right up to when Armin decides that, hey, he's gonna blow up the place. This is where we get a slight change. In the anime, behind him concealed in smoke, you can see that tentacle thing as it's getting closer. Ew. It kind of slithers all around him, while in the manga, the Titan seems to have just popped out of nowhere. Well, not really out of nowhere. It was actually seen right here in a puff of smoke, or whatever this is called. Also, in the manga, Onyankopon's plane seems much more mid-turn of the century, if that makes any sense. We do skip a few panels here, but they are animated a bit further in the episode. However, we skip these 2 panels, our first 2 of the episode. But here comes one of my favorite scenes when Reiner and the gang takes on the previous Titans. The CGI here is stunningly good. This is where Peak would book it to Eren's neck to try and blow him to shit, only to be impaled by the Warhammer Titan. I believe this is Laura Tiber's Titan if I'm not too mistaken. If I am, feel free to flame me in the comments. And then Reiner has to fight off the Jaw Titan. This is where we actually backtrack to one of those panels that weren't animated before, when the Marlians realized that Paradis and the warriors were attacking Eren. They couldn't just sit by and do nothing. And then we skip back to a Levi exclusive scene. Even though he's injured, he's still kicking ass. There you go, Levi. And then we get this Mikasa scene. After that, we dive right back into Armin's scene when he finally sees an old friend. It's Bartholomew. He's come back to exact his revenge and bite Reiner like a fucking tomato. Oh my God. Now, a couple questions that many of you had, especially with this scene, is firstly, how did Reiner survive getting his head and Nate bitten off? Well, it's because of a unique skill called plot armor and some consciousness transfer yada yada. Go look it up. I'm not your dad. And the next question is, how the hell did this woman see this action from all the way over here? I mean, she could have seen the Colossal Titan, but how could she see Reiner's head getting bitten off? Maybe it's one of those wall logic things again. Jeez.
What we're going to do is...
He does realize he's like 200 feet up now, right?
But then he gets flung into the bones, and then we get this beautiful scene of Connie hanging half dead. Might have not guessed it by now, but I'm not the biggest Connie fan. I really like how they added the other Titans in the background as opposed to what we see in the manga. But it seems that all hope is lost as John and Reiner are now hanging for dear life. And Mikasa is doing her best. Even Levi jumps in for one last spout of action, but then he gets taken right out. And then my favorite track of Attack on Titan starts blaring in the background. Barracks. It's a remix, which sounds really great. I think it's an instrumental. Either way, I really need to listen to this rendition. It's so melodious. But when it seems that all hope is lost, Mikasa gets to her breaking point and she screams, "Come at me, bitches, I'm strong." This is another callback to the first season when she learned that Eren was supposedly dead as told by Armin. She said,
私は強い。あなたたちより強い。すごく強い。
and then launching herself head-on into danger. But this time she's interrupted by Annie, Falco, and Gabby coming to save the day. This would be the end of chapter 135. Chapter 136 starts out with Annie explaining that Falco's transformation had sank the boat they were on. At any rate, we skip these 7 panels. Basically, it's just Falco remembering his promise to Reiner to protect Gabby. Moving right along, Levi comes up with a plan to stop Eren and rescue Armin all in one fell swoop. There are a few notable changes after this. When Connie starts talking about the army, instead of showing the army like in the manga, we only show Mikasa's face. And when Annie grabs Mikasa in the anime, she held her by the shoulder, but in the manga, it seems that she grabbed her a little bit closer to the front of her blouse. And then we skip another 8 panels. These cluster of panels focus on Gabby making a very astute observation that when she shot Eren's head off, a centipede came out. And now if they blow his head off again, they might see the very same thing. So, you know, be very cautious. In the next scene, when the Eldians are confronted by the Marlians, Muller, whatever the hell his name is, he seems to crank his gun in the air as opposed to in the anime when he cranks it facing down. I guess he didn't want to shoot anybody by mistake, maybe? And then there's the change with Falco's expression. It seems like in the manga it was Falco that dodged, but it was changed slightly in the anime to show Reiner giving him the signal to dodge instead. We skip this panel of Reiner gearing up to take his leap, and then this panel of him landing. But he's still ready to throw down, and with John by his side, there's no way he could lose. Right? Reiner goes crazy taking down all these Warhammer Titans, giving us a very nice extended scene to this one that's illustrated in the manga with a few notable changes to the fight sequence. When John heads for peak, we see 2 Jaw Titans appear, but in the manga it was an Armor Titan along with some more, which it's not very clear if you look at it. But when John heads to detonate the bombs, we get a slightly different sequence of events. In the manga, he was cut off by 2 Titans. This is where he retreated to below Eren, but in the anime, he was cut off by a Titan who hit him and he fell, only holding on by his gear. And then we get a nice anime exclusive scene of Reiner on his last leg, as per usual. But the anime and manga would pretty much play out beat by beat there and therefore. Here I can't tell if this is a man or woman Titan, but why is there so much of a difference as opposed to the manga and anime? Am I questioning this too much? Probably so. In the manga, it was Connie and Mikasa that killed the Titans that were attacking Annie, but in the anime, it was Mikasa that does the killing and then Connie gives chase to the Okapi. And also, when Mikasa finally gives chase, she kills 2 Titans before her blade breaks on the nape of the armored Titan, but in the anime, she just breaks her blade on the Titan's arm before falling. Also, it was a bit more brutal when Annie kicked his head clean off. I was contemplating whether I should count this or not, but then I said, you know what, I'll keep it in. When we head over to Armin, we can add this panel to the list, and Armin's voice actor really went off here. Props to you, man. Then we skip back to the Titans marching. These scenes weren't in this chapter. Actually, they were found in chapter 134, which was horribly brutal in showing people getting absolutely crushed. In the anime, things play out slightly differently. If you've watched my previous breakdown, I actually predicted this scene would be animated in this episode, so I'll add these few panels to the missing lot, and those are these 2. This scene literally got me crying for both the anime and manga, and yeah, I admitted it though, Jamaican men really don't cry, so if you tell anyone, I'll cut you. But this scene was so much more powerful than it needs to be, and we really do need to discuss this here. Firstly, Mappa's choice in keeping the baby and his mother in color was amazing. All we hear is the audio dim and the baby starts crying. His mother is forced to the edge. She's doing everything in her power to save herself, but most importantly, her baby. The baby is also voiced by the baby for the voice actor for Eren Yeager. But when she falls, she throws the baby in the air for someone to catch it, bringing it to the front of the line, showing the Titans that, hey, we have a kid here, please don't crush us to death. Powerful, powerful scene. Anyways, before the first of 3 parts would end, we would skip these 2 panels of Armin, and then this would bring our panel count to about 14 for this chapter, which would end out chapter 136. So before I get into my thoughts about this episode, let's get the numbers out of the way and see what's been adapted. So for the first part of the 1-hour special, we covered 2 manga chapters, 135 and 136, which had an average of 44 pages. In all, 88 pages. For the panels, it had an average of 209 panels, but collectively, it's 419 panels, with 21 of those being unique or not adapted. This means that only 94.99% of them were adapted, which is pretty good in my book. I'd call this first part near perfect, setting our team up for the main goal and challenges to overcome to achieve that goal. There are a few questionable things here which I thought could need a little more tweaking, like for instance, why are these Titans still connected by a string to Eren? Is it that they need it to stay floating or something? It's a pretty dumb question, I know, but why did Ymir in the first place interfere with everything? It doesn't make sense to me, but hey, I'll probably discuss that a little bit more when we get to the end of this video series. All in all, Mappa has done a really good job in this episode. It's very well structured and pretty good, for the first part at least. The audio and the background was very epic, gives you some nostalgic feeling. On top of that, the art was improved tremendously. The revelation that Falco's Titan could fly was done really well, although they didn't dwell on it too much. But this was actually foreshadowed in the very first episode of the final season, way back when we first saw him reaching up for a bird. And hey, his name is Falco, for Christ's sake, which literally means bird or falcon. Hey, I really love the combination of Annie and Mikasa. I think they make a great team, and we all missed the female Titan anyway. All in all, so far so good. I'll give the first part an 8 out of 10. Next week I'll dive into the second part, so check that out. And if you're asking if I'm back to making regular content, yeah, somewhat. Don't expect a video every single week though. I'll just be doing what I can and focusing on what I can until I can't anymore. So until then, thank you again for joining V Nation. Peace out and stay safe.